We've got Scott Laigo, Dori Bennett, and our coach, Blaine Shorty Bennett. Unfortunately, he's with Dori, and so we can't just kick her off the show and just keep him on. But guys, it's great to see everyone. Dori, if we have any issues, Dori's still trying to figure out how to use a computer. There's volume issues and things like that. But you know, we'll figure all these things out. Scott, Dori, Shorty, welcome. And Scott, how are you?
I'm good, but not as good as Dori, who has a Bloody Mary in her hand.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Okay.
you know, pretty good day for old Dori. I don't know if
Well, when Short Dog and Marcel are in town, Sunday morning Bloody Marys are always first thing we do. Well, it's not really the first, but we'll just call it first thing we do.
Well, more importantly, did you get Shorty his bagel? Because the only reason he comes to visit, and he told me this, he said the only reason I'm coming to visit Dori is because I wanted to see some football, some college football, and I want some bagels. Dori is third on my list. So did you get the Short Dog some bagels?
You got it.
We just want to make sure. Just let me know. If not, I'll come by. We'll bring some bagels. I know he likes his everything bagel. We get the everything bagel going on. Your little toast. So you got to toast it. I don't like mine too toasted. I like it perfectly middle toasted. Maybe a little cream cheese, a little sun-dried tomato, little lox, some capers, some pickled onions. You know, that's the good stuff that I like.
Is this a college football show or is this a food show? I'm just trying to make sure.
It's just a show. There's no rhyme or reason. All right, so listen, let's get to last night's game. You know, we had the Huskies going down to the Ducks. It was a much anticipated game on both sides. There was a lot of storylines leading up to the show. And then just like it is every fall where they say, when I first moved here, they said, no, it doesn't storm here. We just get little rain. Every year I've been here, it damn storms all over the place. I got wind, branches falling everywhere else. And that's the way the stadium looked last night. So before we get into the game, Dori, I mean, how are you torturing your parents with this storm and getting them to the game? Did you guys get there okay and no one blew away? Everything was fine?
Yeah, Noah's Ark was not needed until just after the first quarter. Then the downpour happened for real. Well, actually, when we first got there, there was a little bit of downpour. But we walked right into the band and the cheerleaders performing in front of Husky Stadium in the front, and they were performing Tequila. So our timing was impeccable for sure.
That's Dori's theme song. Okay. Scott, you were nice and dry, you know, enjoying the game. Where were you?
I'm always nice and dry. I don't go to the games. So I was actually doing a little papa duty last night and watching the game here at the house and, you know, got done watching the Penn State game and then moved it over to the Oregon game. So Washington game.
So, Coach, I mean, you know, you've coached for a million years. You know, you've had so many players come through your organization and coaches. I mean, Coach of the Year, 1990, 3 state championships, a member of the 100-win club. I mean, you know, you name it. You know, nominated 1996 NFL's High School Coach of the Year. Last time I spoke to you, we were in a bar. It was November 5th, 2018. We were live at the backyard. We were doing our football show right after Monday Night Football. And it's just incredible to have you back on.
Well, thank you.
What were your thoughts when you saw the performance? And I know this is just an overview and we'll get into some specifics, but you've been watching this team all year long. Now you come to the game last night and you saw what eventually, you know, became the result of the game. Just what was that initial thought for you as you're walking back home, getting home and saying, you know, what you witnessed?
Oh my, after the game. You're talking after the game.
Yeah, just after the game. We'll get into specifics of the game.
Well, the person I sat next to, he's I think he's a big donor or whatever, but but he had everything right. He says, I don't like this, I don't like that. There's a lot of things about this offense I just can't stand. And I thought he was right on point. They don't throw their tight end enough, whether they have the package to do that or not. Often that's a philosophical thought, but I don't know. They just have a hard time. And I think, without looking at any film, my thoughts were that Oregon dominated them up front with their offensive line. I didn't know where it was, but multiple times they ran that and where we were sitting, you could see this whole thing just open up. So over there on the right side, right tackle, and whether they had a tight end that or a backer sitting out there, someone was just getting pretty much handled, and this back just ran in there unmolested. I think I can keep track, but big yardage. He scored one touchdown by going up in there, and I thought, well, somebody's just getting handled on the line of scrimmage. That's my first thought. So I don't know. It's a tough deal. You get into philosophy. There's what are they doing with the ball passing wise, and everybody's really critical, but I don't know why they didn't come to their stuff early. Their tight end, they completed 2 in a row. I mean, where was that? Well, of course, they didn't have the ball the first quarter. They had 3 plays or something, and after the punt block, and they had 3 plays and scored. So they really didn't have a lot of time offensively. But God, they just could not get anything moving. And anyway, I don't know. It'd be nice to sit in on some of it, but and not be too critical. I mean, they do stuff the same as everybody else, but my goodness. And for us guys that throw the ball a little bit, for those quarterbacks, and someone would say, and my wife is one of them, she said, no, it's 3rd and 3 in 3rd down zone, or 4th and 2. Why do they throw it deep? Well, sometimes the progression does that. Sometimes it's call you don't know. But the thing that just kills you as a coach is if they throw the ball deep and they throw the thing out of bounds. I mean, nothing aggravates a coach more than if you're going to throw the ball, to throw it out of bounds deep. Well, there's no chance. And I don't know how many times we did that. So anyway, oh well. Incidentally, Scott, I haven't seen you in 20 years. Huh?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you haven't changed much. Yeah, you look the same. Yeah, I know. Yeah, you get a little.
I try to keep it the same. I try to keep it
You used to wearing hats.
Yeah. That's what coaching does for you. That's what coaching does for you. Yeah, the Oregon ran for 329 yards to our 55. And I'll be honest, I honestly, from a coach position from it, I felt like that the first quarter, the couple minutes, that the team's energy was different, the way they were playing, the pick. I just felt like we just didn't put the foot on the neck.
Yeah.
And I really thought after getting the safety, getting the punt back, if we could have scored there, it could have maybe turned some things, at least got us going in the positive direction.
Yeah.
But with any team, if you keep them around long enough, they're going to get you. But I mean, to run the ball 329 yards down your throat, and especially I thought the kids played fairly well defensively in the beginning of the game, and I thought, Will and I were talking about it before the game. I mean, their special teams, Ray Spunner, Porter was just unbelievable. He was unbelievable. Yeah. I kind of like special teams, if you know what I mean, Short Dog. I got this kid. I got this kid that likes special teams, so I like to keep my eye on it. So I thought they just did a great job, and they really did a much better job with the special teams. And then, they give up 329, and then they give a bad snap at the end of the game to make it worse than it really was. And that was very, very frustrating. It was the lack of consistency for 4 quarters, which is really, really frustrating. I think critically can say that's our frustration.
And the energy, you said it, there was just tons of energy early. And it's just, everyone was up, the stadium was up. I mean, the whole thing, the players were, rolling the towels on 3rd and short. I mean, it was just, slowly it went to a fizzle, and Oregon couldn't do anything. I mean, they were stumped themselves. They didn't, but eventually Oregon took over, and then it was just a struggle. Yeah.
Well, there was that opening drive when they went down and we gave them 30 yards and penalties.
Yeah.
This kind of ties in a little bit later to the Jimmy Lake sideline issue, and then after the game and all that kind of stuff. There was a lot of chirping going on, and we all know earlier in the week that Jimmy didn't help the chirping because he put himself, with his comment about, we elite recruit at Washington. So that, I get it. But, it was, I really thought the first one against the safety was really a poor call. And then the second was really close, but, I get it. The referees are trying to get control of the game early. They probably heard the kids going back and forth. And then, then we have the sideline issue, and Coach Lake gets, pushing the kid on the, I get it as a coach from that field, but boy, just frustrating. We couldn't do it for 4 quarters. And you're absolutely right. I honestly looked like in the first quarter with their defense, I honestly looked like kind of the Wazoo game plan. Like they just had everything in front of them. They just weren't letting them thing. And Oregon didn't really have didn't have the answers.
No.
So I thought, wow,
no.
maybe we came together with a good plan. And I thought defensively and offensively, and then, but unfortunately, to be quite frank and honest with you, offense unfortunately shows its ugly rear head. I mean, I'm sorry, but you're a Division I Power 5 program. You got to be able to produce more than 150 yards of offense.
Yeah, that's almost embarrassing. It is embarrassing, not almost.
It is.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. And only 3 first down, or 6 first downs.
Oh, it was horrible.
It was horrible. Horrible.
Well,
it's just frustrating. It's frustrating.
Well, and the number of 3 and outs, the multiple number of 3 and outs consecutively when the Huskies were on offense, absolutely. I mean, it ended up decimating the defense because they were on the field. The defense was on the field 3/4 of the football game. 3/4 of the game, the defense was on the field. And the only reason we got the first touchdown was due to the defense, right? The interception.
Mm-hmm.
So you cannot expect your defense to be on the field 3/4 of the game and come out with a win when you have multiple consecutive 3 and outs and can't produce a first down until the 4th quarter with a little over 2 minutes to go. And now you're going up tempo, and now you've changed the pace of the game. And now you're calling plays where players know where they need to be immediately. And there's that, they picked up the tempo, picked up the pace on the one drive that was sustained with first downs and scored a touchdown. It shows what the offense is capable of, but waiting till the 4th quarter to make those changes and adjustments and get that up tempo piece, it is futile.
I got a question about the offensive philosophy, and Coach, maybe you can help me out here. So I wrote down here, University of Washington had drives end at the Oregon 46, the 50, the Oregon 42, the Oregon 24, the Oregon 46 again, and the Oregon 49, which resulted in 0 points. When as a coach, do you have to make a decision saying, maybe I want to coach a certain way, but I know the limitations on my team and I have to maybe take some chances that I normally wouldn't, especially in those positions where you're on the other side of the field and you're not converting or going for it on 4th down? What does that have to go into the mind of a coach to make those types of decisions, knowing the team that you have?
Well, momentum, of course, is a wonderful thing, but I think that in order to change the feeling on the field with the players and the team, like they did in the fourth quarter, is to run some up tempo, get in, get it done. So I don't know why they wouldn't come back to their tight end and rather throw the thing deep. I said, get. We used to call it orange. Everybody went out, whether you were empty or whether you had one left in the backfield, orange. Everybody went down and hooked up at 5-6 yards. I don't see that. All of a sudden we're throwing this thing deep, and I mean it's frustrating, and I'm sure. And you don't get that many chances. If you don't keep that thing rolling, then pretty soon you're out of chances, and you get one shot. And if the play that you've called, if you go through the steps and you end up having to throw deep, and sometimes my wife would say, "Well, why they throw deep?" Well, sometimes they call it, and sometimes it's just part of the concept. You got one, you got twos covered, then go up on top. That old West Coast offense always did that. You always went deep if they change the defense and they're playing you tough on the outside. You throw the fade. Well, now we modified that, but the pros, that's what they do. So I don't know. We can sit around and talk all day about all these concepts, but you have to keep that momentum going. And sometimes a change of pace is what you have to do. So,
Yeah.
That's what it is. Boy, I know that.
I was a little frustrated. They say that in a college or any game, there's about 6 plays. It can be even a dead ball play, that it's the 6 big plays in a game that can really make a big difference.
Yeah.
I felt one of the big ones was the one when on the 4th and 2, and they got into Wildcat and they had McGrew run the ball, and was poorly blocked, and they kind of had. It has a lot of tendencies for McGrew to run the ball. I didn't understand why they didn't change up that tendency, because, I know this is hard for people to understand, Coach, but the other team is coached too. So they
have coaches do that.
They just don't line it up so you can get those 2 yards to make it good for them,
Yeah.
So, that was my frustration. I felt like, the tendency issues and things like that you've done, and I agree with you. I just don't understand how they just don't, get away from throwing to Otten, who's one of their better ones, and doing the little simple things and make I always, we always talk about it, trying to make the quarterback have the first throw, an easy throw, a completion, get him feeling good about himself.
Exactly. Yeah.
As you touch progression, that's what you want the kid to do. I always love what Bobby Bowden used to say. He used to always say, he goes, "I love these offensive coordinators. They say we're going to run this route and stuff like that." And I always tell the offensive coordinator, "Why don't you ask the quarterback what his favorite route is? That's the route we should be running."
That's right.
Run the slant. Just run him what he wants to do. What were some of the things? What were some of the things that you taught quarterbacks that way, Coach?
What's the question? I didn't catch the question.
What are some of the teaching progressions like you taught quarterbacks? What was the same type of philosophies? The ways the quarterbacking.
Yeah, well, they pretty much know what their plays are, what their favorite plays are. The coach might know it, but often you call it, and they've already beat you to it. Often. And of course, now this is most of my stuff is. Well, some college, and I was in Europe with all that. So, but it didn't any of it change. I mean, they knew what I was going to call most of the time, and they would have chosen the same thing. You don't go crazy. So I don't know. Yeah, that's a tough question. Where'd you come from? Where'd you get that question?
Well, the crazy thing about the world that you and I. We coached in my era, Don James and all that kind of stuff. And now we got this RPO stuff is crazy. I mean, you got guys going every which way. Come on. The line that go down the field, and I'm like, what is going on here? So it's a different you know, I mean, I don't know how you teach progressions, because I'm like, you know, if he does that, you do this, you do that. I mean,
I think you have to start simple. And the guy I'm sitting next to, he's a big timer in well, he's got his big boat and all the rest of that. But I said, and his father coached some little league team in the area for 20 years. And he says, we never ran any RPO stuff. I said, no, none of us did. We didn't do RPOs. But still.
Yeah. Well, if we were at Washington, trust me, if we would have put the RPO stuff up on the board in front of Coach James, he would have told us to erase the board.
From the tower.
You're not going, that guy's not going, we're not.
Exactly.
That's the truth of the matter. I mean, you know, when I got to Washington, it was pretty funny, because as you're a teaching progression guy, I mean, cover one was cover one. Well, Coach James, cover six was cover one. So you had to change their philosophy real quick. You're like, cover six is cover one, but how do we change? But whatever he said, we did. So cover six was cover one. So you just do it. But yeah, to tell the guy that you're going to run this RPO stuff, I'm sure some of these old timer coaches are like, I couldn't even coach him this stuff. So. And speaking of, I sent a still picture of us, you know, all together, and this guy from Penn State told me to make sure I said hello to you. And
Oh, really?
He wanted me to make sure I said hello, and he said he thought it was awesome you were on the show today. So he wanted me to make.
Thank you.
So, in fact, I'm going to go see him on Thursday.
Oh, really?
We're going back for the Michigan Rutgers game. Don't mention Rutgers too much, because Will kind of it's kind of sentimental for him.
Hey, stop picking on these teams, all right? Stop. We know Rutgers doesn't belong in the Big Ten, but the deal was too sweet and they couldn't turn down the money. So, in fact, that AD is no longer there. So I don't know what happened there. I think he took a piece of the pie and said, okay, I got a little pepperoni and put a little this, and I'm taking my slice and I'm going home after that deal. But we know that a program like that doesn't belong there. But they have a quarterback coming in next year that hopefully will help them out, so they don't lose 44-3. They could lose 44-17. So, but that's a whole other story.
Well, getting back to Joe for a minute, I'm hoping that he didn't have to choose between living out there, which he loves, and downtown LA. If this guy goes to USC, I thought, what kind of a decision is that?
Coach, he does love where he's living. I don't know.
He does. Yeah.
The fly fishing there is pretty special.
Yeah.
And, so that old boy, he is a happy boy. He's got 9 minutes, not 11.
Yeah, I know that's so great. Yeah.
So he can go see a river, and so he's a happy guy.
Yeah.
He gets to coach for a great guy. He really, really enjoys.
Yeah, that's a neat thing. Yeah. Yeah, because well, we know he won't put up with much. Joe.
No. He has proved that point. There's no doubt about that. So we're excited to go see him, and
we'll say hello to him. I usually call. I've been a little delinquent this week, and I don't know. I don't even know why I haven't called, but anyway. It's,
the good thing, you already mentioned Austria. So your other good guy, Stacy, he had a good win yesterday too.
Isn't that great? Yeah. So. Now there's a guy that landed on his feet. He was headed for shafts, I think, at about 70-80 grand, and the next week he's got $500,000 at Boise State. I mean, how about that?
Yeah.
And deservedly so, right? It's the good guys. Those are the coaches that you just think, you know what?
Yeah.
There are so many good guys that are coaches that aren't on the sidelines right now and aren't working with young people, that when it does happen in a positive way, you just know the huge benefit will be exponentially felt, not only by the team, the players, and their community. So let's go.
Yep. I agree 1,000%.
Yeah.
Speaking of quarterbacks and and all the different variations now, what do you look for in a prototypical quarterback in today's game? I'm not trying to put down Dylan Morris, but he has struggled. And, obviously the offense has struggled as it is. So is there certain things that you want, if two or three things that you want in your quarterback and you go, yeah, man, that's my guy. Win, lose, or draw, that's my guy. What are some of those qualities that you want to see in your quarterback?
Oh boy, that's a little bit of a tough question, because I always look at their techniques, because that's what we did. And that's what, in fact, we're still running this camp. Blaine's running it now, but having people, well, that's the thing I didn't like about, who's the guy that was in Minnesota? The black
Vikings?
quarterback, yeah, was throwing the ball. God, he just had a horrible.
Randall Cunningham.
No, anyway,
Oh.
it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Bridgewater.
Oh.
Oh my goodness. Well, somebody got a hold of him and changed his whole throwing technique, because now he's actually looks like somebody that can throw the ball. So there's a lot of stuff, technique, especially when you get a guy that can throw it, and a lot of times he needs a lot of drill, and so I always look at that, and that, unfortunately, when these young quarterbacks come through in the undergrades, the best athlete is the quarterback. It's like your quarterback, and so he just, sometimes his dad, who knows nothing, has to teach him how to throw the ball. Well, it's just horrible stuff comes out of that, and it takes them a legitimate amount of time to make those corrections so they can actually throw the ball, and that deals with accuracy. So that's the biggest thing. And the other point I think probably in coaching is the biggest fault of all coaching staffs and teams is time management. I mean, it costs people game after game after game because their time management, and the guy that directs your time management, of course, is your quarterback. So you have to really spend some time with him about what we need to do in this situation and that situation. And because when you're out there on the field, those players, they take it from the quarterback. They're not taking it from the right guard or some coaches on the sideline. I mean, the quarterback is the guy. So, and generally they because you work with them and they take snaps, and there's a lot has changed with quarterbacks. But to me, that's the biggest. I mean, you got to be able to take the right steps for the right routes, and get to throwing so that they can actually be on target, which is what you hope for the most. Anyway, that's a tough question, actually, because you take what you're given and you just have to program those at the lower levels and get that guy that has been commissioned to be the quarterback, and then you got to teach him how to throw it and the steps and do the rest of it. If you don't get that, then you got to make him a wide receiver or something.
Well, but if you have say you're out there recruiting and you're looking for someone, and they have some of this technique, and they have a little bit of this, a little bit of that, what is the piece as a college coach that when you get these players and you go and say, okay, this guy can work for us and we can take him to the next level, what kind of a guy would you go out and recruit, say at a D1 level or at any collegiate level?
Well, arm strength, of course, is one big one, but you just assume that the coach knows what he's talking about, and sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
That's been historic, even in the pros. The higher you get up, the coach is not there because he was a great teacher of blocking with your guards and tackles, or defensively playing the gap, or whatever it is. I mean, they these quarterbacks have to be able to be trained, and the coach has to know what he's after. Yeah.
And I think that's what we're looking at, right? I mean, I think we're looking at, we have a quarterback that that must have had the ability to play at the D1 level, to be recruited and be here on the team. And yet it's been over 2 years or 2.5 years or a year and a half now, where the skill level does not look like it has progressed to where the coaches are putting the players in the best position to win. And that's I think that's the bottom line right now with some of the issues out there, between the disconnect between what a coach wants a player to do and then what that player is actually capable of doing. There seems to be a disconnect. And to me, it goes down to technique, and it goes down to basics. And if the coach can't break it down and create the foundation for that player, then some onus goes on the coaching. It really does. It really does.
Yeah. To go back on what Short Dog was talking about, which I think is, for any young quarterback or any coach to watch that Monday night Peyton and Eli Monday night football. It's a PhD for quarterbacking. I mean, they talk exactly what you're talking about, Coach, talking about where you can throw the ball with 21 seconds or 14 seconds. And this is how we threw it, and all these things, because those are things that aren't taught. I mean, and Dori and I, we kind of had a discussion last week about 7-on-7 versus, what you and Blaine and you guys have done for years with quarterbacking. That's what I think traditionally should be done with these young quarterbacks. But unfortunately, we've gone to the AAU basketball 7-on-7 deal, and it's none of that's being taught. It's all about, and then my wide receiver is 6'5", and he can out jump yours and do whatever. And so, really, is he being taught those things? Because I think that at the end of the day, I mean, as we both know, the next level, everything gets a little bit better. The windows in high school go like this. The windows in college go like this. And with pros, it's like that. And you're throwing on anticipation. You're not throwing a nice wide hole. You're like, I hope that receiver's where I told him to be. Last week. Here we go. I mean, it's and then Peyton and Eli talked about it. They talk about the throw that's so hard is the one right over the linebacker. It's got to drop in front of the safety, right over the line. You got to get it over a certain height. I mean, and these kids are bigger, faster, and stronger than they've ever been, and they can run. Look at Micah Parsons. I mean, they can play him anywhere. He can rush, he can drive, he can do. And right before we came on, I watched him on the inside linebacker position, and they ran basically a bubble with the receiver, and he ran it down. And he says most NFL linebackers can't run that down, but Mike was that good. He's like, okay, throw that, I'll go get it, and he gets it. These kids are different. I mean, on both sides, they're just different. And so I find it very interesting to me that we have all these quarterback gurus, camps, whatever, Elite 7, Elite 11s, and these kids just translate, and they come to the pros and they just don't translate. And I'm like, I thought these guys were all so trained so well. I mean, where did
exactly.
And again, I'm not trying to be the jerk here. I'm just saying, I just find it interesting that these guys are supposed to be so well trained, and I don't see it.
That's right. Well, they passed that guru title around pretty loosely, because if you really know what you're talking about, there's not very many of them out there that really know quarterback technique. I mean, you just don't. I bought a tape one time. We were back in New England when Drew was playing for the Patriots, and we had a camp back there, so we all went back and put on this camp, and there was a tape that was a hot seller back there about how to teach a quarterback how to throw the ball. Oh God, it was awful. It was absolutely awful. The guy was talking about being a boxer and how you punch please don't sell us. Well, they were selling a lot of them. I thought, this, and people don't know.
Well, that's, when we're speaking of that, that special teams guru back in Penn State, I always tell him, I said, well, do you ever say anything to the kickers? He goes, nope, not a word. If that kid can kick it like that, I just make sure that all 10 guys are blocking the right guy and he gets the punt off. Past that, don't say a word. Kick it that way, kick it that way. That's all I tell them. I don't, you're absolutely right. These gurus these days, it's just phenomenal to me. Phenomenal.
We got to make sure that after this show that we get Coach Shorty a copy of that tape for being on the show. That will be our parting gift to you. We'll get you that VHS reel-to-reel copy. And if we can find a VHS tape deck, we'll play that and we'll put it on loop. You could put it off, Thanksgiving, just have it on the background and you'll show everybody how to play.
I'm sure they don't exist. I'm sure
it's in somebody's basement. He might have a box of them somewhere. We'll find it on eBay, for 4 cents, just pay for shipping and handling and take this tape off our hands. Jimmy Lake has obviously struggled with his coaching career so far. I'm going to be fair. I'm going to throw last year out because the Pac-12 and their decision-making as a whole was a mess. The season started so late. The season started so late. So, I kind of throw that out the window a little bit. But when you have a first-year coach or second-year coach, what's a fair timeline for you to give a coach at a new program? What do you think is a fair? Because as we know, everything is hot, hot button, and everybody wants everybody fired today, tomorrow, yesterday. Yeah. But as a coach, one that's run programs, that have gone to different programs, have worked with so many people, what do you think is a fair timeline to give a coaching staff to see if they could get something in order, or you realize, say, hey, this is not working out, it's time to move on?
Well, I would just toss out, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. I mean, you're lucky if it's the second year, depending on what level they are. Of course, if we're talking about the Washingtons of the world, I mean, you got to have 3 or 4 years to give a guy a chance to recruit, and especially with this transfer portal up now, why some of these guys turn them around real quick. Utah State's one of them, and who's the other one?
Michigan State.
Oh, Michigan State. I mean, they have people assigned to. That's all they do is check the portal, and so it's not like the old days when you had to get a kid and develop him and moving on up, and by the 3rd or 4th year. So, but I still think Jimmy Lake has, I think he's really, I've read a lot about him. I don't know very much what his football background is, but he's a legitimate coach, and he was tossed into this thing. And I think if you don't have experience as a head coach, there's at any level. I mean, high school, could be junior high. I mean, one of my sons is a coach, a high school coach over in Post Falls. He's got 15 assistant coaches on his staff, and that runs all the way through the junior high and
JV
and JVs. He's got separate JV, but you have to. These guys have to learn, what it is. How do you put this thing together? It's not magic. It's just if you don't know it, it's trouble because you make a ton of mistakes. And Jimmy Lake came out hot, and of course it's all on him right now. But all the press and all the thing jumped in, But you don't just elevate to a head coaching position at this level and just everything's magical. I mean, if you have never been a head coach before, that's a different cat. It's just a different cat, and you got to learn it someplace. And experience usually is where you learn it. And, anyway, yeah.
Coach, for me growing up, and like when I decided to become a head football coach, wanted to make that move, I went and talked to my mentors, Monty Kohler at O'Day, I went down and saw Sidot and down at Tumwater and things like
Oh,
that.
yeah.
And Terriana, the Cascade. And so, what's some kind of advice you'd give to young coaches today about development? I think that I've talked to when Joe was, thinking about, or in the profession and all that kind of stuff. I said, put together a notebook, write these things down, talk, how did that coach handle? Those are things I think that are important for these young coaches that want to be these guys. You got to really do that mentorship and figuring this thing out. So what are some of your thoughts about doing those types of things?
Well, they need mentors.
Yeah.
I'm almost to a point where I never go to. I used to go to all the clinics because I was promoting the camp, and then I wanted to go ahead and hear some speakers stuff. But no, they have to get on with somebody that has a good reputation and learn how you do that. I mean, honestly, I think about just in my own experience, my first head job, I put out a football notebook, and the passing game had 1 page in it, 1 page of passing game. And half of it was blocking, and it was titled something about nobody allowed in this area. Well, this was my one sheet on the passing game. Later on, as I learned and got a hold of people and did all those things, all of a sudden now, and not that we had so much that was bad, we just had a lot of stuff that you really couldn't get in a notebook. I mean, you didn't want it in there, but still, it was more than 1 page. I used to get a hold of this guy. I can't come up with his name, and you would know him because you might be closer. You're not even close to my age, but you talk about Sidot and some of these guys. But this guy, can't remember what his name. He was an assistant down in the junior college program, and he got tight with an assistant at Stanford when Walsh was there. So he had the West Coast offense intact, and there was a lot of stuff to it. And I used to tell him when at the clinics I'd meet him, and I said, don't give me any junk. I just want your best. Today, I want your best scheme, whatever it is. That's what I want. And then the next year I say, I want your best. I want your best play. And so eventually I had a lot of stuff, which was simple, but very effective. So anyway, but these young coaches, well, God bless them. They picked a good profession, but they need to get to somebody like you, for example, that knows, here's what you got to do. Now it's a tough deal. Yeah.
Here's one for Dori and for Will. This is called financial mentorship from Coach. The young man in Pennsylvania says this all the time to me. He says, Short Dog told me one thing early in life. He goes, Coach, it's not how much money you have, it's how much money you save. He does. He does that all the time.
I spent a lot of time with Joe in Oregon, and this whole thing of multiplying your interest, double it by 7 or whatever, the rule of sevens or whatever it is, and he never forgot it. He never forgot it.
Nope. Well, now trust me, Coach. His CEO, his wife, she teaches him everything on that. Trust me. He doesn't know if he has $2 or if he has $100. So
well, this is good.
Yeah, she's in control. He always threatens, a little divorce, and she says, "You don't know where the money is." I know.
Well, I can tell you, he knows what kind of a fly he's got into that leader now.
So she, we know who runs the show. I mean, he thinks he kind of runs the show, but we know who runs the show. So.
He still is the special teams coordinator at home, but the head coach, you go, Becky. You go.
You
Well,
don't know
the
what's
She's
best-
just
happening.
leaving him enough for bait so you can go fly fishing. Here's a
Oh,
couple
yeah.
bucks.
The best thing about coaches that they come in and they think they're going to run the house, and then that's when the wife looks at them and goes, "For 40 years we got along without you. We're going to continue to do this without you. Take a seat over there and just get on the car and just start getting the ride because we got this. We got this." So, true story.
You're
It's
good.
true.
Yeah.
That's
Oh.
great.
Not how much you make, it's how much you save. I love that line. I love that line. Will?
Coach, I've got a question for you. There's so many challenges today for coaches, right? And now we're seeing it with the transfer portal, and now this year we have the name, image, likeness, where these kids can go out and make some money. And we're seeing it now at University of Washington. They're putting a program together to help with that, and all these schools. If you're a coach in this modern day football that's dealing with all these new issues, are you having concerns in your locker room? Let's say the stud quarterback has got himself a $1 million deal with Joe's Ford down the block, and your punter is not having any of that, any kind of deal, where obviously there's going to be a difference in that locker room, and now we have money playing a part along with status, position, notoriety. Would that be a concern for you? And what are your thoughts on how you might have to deal with that, or at least what to look for to make sure that you don't have division in that locker room?
Well, I think it goes down. There's a lot of debate out there about the money portion of this thing, but I like the statement that Drew Bledsoe made one time. He says, I'd play in the NL for nothing if that's what they had. If I got no salary, I would still play in the NFL. And I think that mentality is really something that you need to have out there with these quarterbacks. It's pretend like you don't have all this stuff. You got a locker room and we've got pads for you. And we're going to play this game called football. And here's what it's going to take. And I think that generates within the kid himself that this is fun. This is really fun. Now these other pieces have dropped in there, and frankly, initially I was against all this, but I'm old school. I don't think they should do that. I think it's going to wipe. I don't know, only because someone told me, an athletic director, he said, well, this is going to eliminate some of the football programs out there, the athletic programs, if they're getting paid for this. I don't even know that. I just know that it's fine with me right now. And I think it's all secondary anyway. I mean, it's nice to get, we had when I went to college, we had a kid that was Ray Washburn. Some of you know him. And we had a guy that every time he'd come to campus and he'd see Ray, he'd shake his hand and pass him a 20. Well, okay, well that didn't stop Ray from playing basketball and pitching and all the rest of it. It was just something that the guy did. So I don't know. I think it can be a non-issue, how the locker room is dealt and all the rest of it. But again, you got the personality of some kids, and it's tough for them to step into that role. So I don't know. That's a good question. I just think basically kind of a deal where a kid is, if he has good enough to play, and this team, he's going to run out on the field with them, and they're going to compete against somebody else. Sometimes that's just good enough. It's good enough. And whether I get anything from that, the fun of the game with the other players is what this is about. So anyway, I don't know if that answers your question. You're digging down deep now, huh?
Yeah, I try to bring it back to some of the things because, listen, we got Blaine Shorty Bennett with us, and coach of the year and all your accolades and everything that you've been involved with, and your all Northwest football camp, and all the people that you've worked with throughout the years. So just having that point, we're not talking about a 30-year-old coach that is, new to a program and dealing with all this stuff. And for someone that has gone through the years and seen evolution, and whether it's offensive philosophy and, doing certain things, but now the locker room is so different, and we have a new element in here that really now, we've known players have gotten paid, but it was kind of like hush hush. And we know that, Reggie Bush now has a home for his family, and we've got cars, but now it's up front in your face. And it's a little concerning for me, because obviously it's going to depend on the personality of that, particular person, how
Absolutely.
they handle it. Are they humble? Are they coming in with gold chains and diamonds and saying, hey, I'm making $1 million and you're not making anything, and this is the way I roll? And that's going to be really interesting for coaches going forward, whether it's, hey, you got to keep that stuff out of our locker room, or whatever that is, or finding programs, a way for everyone to get a little piece of the pie, even though we all know there's always going to be that one person that's going to take 3 slices instead of the one.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and it's also going to become, it already has become a huge recruiting tool. What program does your university offer for players coming in for NIL, right? And so that's now become one more recruiting tool to use. And it could mean that if you assemble a great group, and I think that the group that the University of Washington has assembled, they've pulled from different sports and from different businesses. Detlef is on the group that the University of Washington has now put together. And he not only brings his experience as a collegiate athlete and an NBA athlete, but also from running a foundation and the investment company that he's a partner in. So all of those pieces together, I think it was a really strong move, but it has now become a recruiting tool. And it is a part of the reality of recruiting players to universities now, and how that's handled. And every players are going to want to know, what's in it for me. It used to be your education is paid for. Your education is paid for. And here's how much, that's the value of the University of Washington. A degree from the University of Washington is worth this much money. And we could equate value of the experience with what they're going to leave the university with, and the ability to get to the NFL, because that was a definite path that started, that is clear. I mean, you can go all the way back to Warren Moon, early in Don James' career, right? So establishing your university as one that can provide a great education, provide a path to your goals if it's playing in the NFL. And while you're here now, this is the other piece we're going to offer that's a part of your lifetime goals, right? So it is a reality of what they're now needing to deal with. And maybe we need to hire, I'm glad Coach Peterson's a part of it. I really am. So,
yeah.
And I can also just look at what we have here.
My only question is, from the people that were involved in it, Vita Vea, the defensive tackle from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, he's the head of soccer. So if his 330-pound Samoan guy's coming down with the ball, I'm out.
I thought there was there's a female.
The white ocean just got. I like the idea that Vita Vea is promoting 2 sports, multi-sports. I'm all in. I'm all for that. But when Vita Vea has a soccer ball, I'm out of his way. I'm not stopping Vita Vea for all he wants.
Are you sure that?
You go in there. I'm not going in there. I'm going.
Scott, are you sure that wasn't a typo? Because the person before him, I thought there was a female that had the soccer piece.
Nope. Kelsey Plum is basketball.
Right.
Sis Bates is softball. Taylor Rapp is football. And Vita Vea is soccer. I want to see him Does a little juggling while he's at practice with Tom Brady and see how that goes.
It
the
might
little
have been
short
because
shorts?
of the dance they saw him do on the sidelines. Remember the dance that they saw him do on the sidelines? If you can move like that, your feet must be really good.
Like I said, I promote multi-sports. That's not my issue. My issue is with Vita Vea with the soccer ball. I'm out of the way. I'm not even going there.
That's your issue. That's a very simple issue.
He wins. I'm out.
Hey, listen, if he could get into those soccer shorts, I mean, that
I'm in.
starts right there. If you get into soccer shorts, that's it right there. I remember when I was working, when I was working retail in New York. I was working at a store called Gant USA, and Warwick Dunn was doing a promotion for us. This is when he was at the height of his career down in Tampa Bay, and Mike Allstott, and he comes in, and he's a tiny dude. He's like 5'6", 5'7", really small guy, but his legs were the size of someone that was like 260, 270. And I said, we're supposed to do this photo shoot. I don't have anything that will fit you. I said, this is a European brand. It's called Gant USA. I mean, all these guys are walking around. They're all 5'9", 160. With everything is slim to slimmer to slimmest, and you've got these monster legs. Yeah, I was like, I got plenty of tops for you. we can give you shirts and sweaters, but these football players are built so different. And it's just, even someone as small as Warwick Dunn, you see them and you realize like, okay, this guy's just built different. I can't imagine Vita Vea walking into Gant USA and saying, find me an outfit. I was like, no, Vita, yeah, you win. We're done. It's not happening. Love it. Love it. Hey, Coach, we had a discussion last week. And so I just want to get your perspective on the role of a coach. Last week, Inglewood, California football team defeated Morningside 106-0. It was 104-0. They go for 2. The coach there asked the refs not to have a running clock. He had his star quarterback that's going to UCLA next year throw 13 touchdowns, and it was embarrassing for all parties. And the coach from the other team said, hey, it's just a joke. It makes no sense. We had this discussion. I just want to know what your thoughts on, why would a coach do that? And really, what's the role of a coach? We talk about mentors and being a teacher to these kids. What lessons are you learning from beating up on a team at 106? And it's really, really hard for us to kind of wrap our heads around it because it's so disappointing. So what do you think when you hear that? And what do you think should be the primary role of a coach that has nothing to do with wins and losses?
Well, I'm telling you, you're digging down for some really tough questions, looking for answers. And, but we've all been on both ends of that. Some by mistake, and it's sometimes things can happen. I think in my own history, we beat a team like 71-6 one time, and same complaint. We got a quarterback that's throwing the ball, and but I had lost complete control of the situation. It was our first game. I'd suspended 7 kids. I had an old rule about if you miss practice, then you miss a game. So I left like 11 of our players home. I only had like 24 players, and we were really good. And we got up on this team, and I'm made a mistake as a young coach. I'm on the sideline high-fiving, and in the meantime, my backup quarterback's in the game. Now that kid eventually started for us that year, and but it was embarrassing. I mean, I thought, oh my goodness, I had complaints from but it just, I think it gets back into experience. I don't know why anyone would ever do that. I don't know why anyone would ever not have the running clock, but it happens, and I think. But it's like we were just at a game 2 weeks ago, and one of the parents is so boisterous about every call that the coach made. Every call was a complaint about it. I mean, didn't matter. He just complained about it. So you get a coach like that that's down there, and there's not much you can do about it. It's not right. They should have some kind of ruling on it, but obviously they don't. But no, I think it's horrendous, actually. I mean, anyway, the running clock's one of the better things they've established. But I don't know. I just know how we live. So that doesn't answer your question. That's a tough question. Yeah.
Well, I think, Coach, I think that the frustration for, guys like ourselves, the world that we live in, fortunately, is social media. Everybody feels like they have the First Amendment right to say whatever they want, when they want, how they want, I know, a lot of coaches, ban their families from seeing any social media because of such negative things that are out there, which is sad. It's, and everybody has the First Amendment right to say whatever they want. But it's become such a society where, it's so easy to criticize. And if you haven't been in there, you have 30 seconds to make a decision, what defense to call, what offense to call, what special teams call. If you haven't ever been in those shoes, it's really hard. I mean, I saw today, it's one of my favorite quotes, "The man in the arena" from, Teddy Roosevelt. I mean, if you haven't been in it, it's don't, you don't have much to say.
Yeah,
because
right.
It's easy to be the guy on the side and say, this is negative, this is positive, this is what. At the end of the day, it's really about, the things that you and I both know. 40 years from now, you get a letter, you get to get invited to a wedding, you get to see him become a doctor. That's what it's about.
Yeah.
And we lose sight of that so quickly. And I appreciate wanting to win over the weekend. I know it always makes Monday a lot easier when your team won over the weekend. But at the end of the day, one's got to win, one's got to lose. How you win, how you lose, how you do it with class, how, those to me, those are the invaluable things to me as a coach. And that's sadly where we've gotten away from, to me personally.
Yeah.
That we don't value those things, So enough of that piece, though.
Yeah, I mean, so much to wrap your head around and try to understand why, whether it's notoriety for his program or come here because we're going to put on a show or whatever case may be. I don't like it. It is what it is. I feel bad for the kids that were on the other end of a score like that. Coach, a lot of conversation about the college football playoffs. I believe the playoffs have been in, correct me if I'm wrong, 2017, right? Somewhere along the lines is when we started this format. Do you like this format? Do you like the fact that it comes down to, after an entire season, it comes down to 4 teams competing in a playoff system for a national championship? Or do you like the old format where there was more emphasis on the bowl games, whether we were excited about seeing the Cotton Bowl and the Sugar Bowl and all these bowl games on January 1st, when that's what you kind of did. You got up and said, okay, I'm not moving from this seat until, the lights go down and we're done. Just bring the breakfast, the lunch and dinner. This is where I'm at. And, hopefully there'll be a commercial somewhere along the lines where I could use the restroom. Or the third option is, would you like to see it expanded? So do you like this format? You like the old format, or would you like to see something new?
No, I like the old format. I do like, with all the people that are out there, I've privately maintained that there's a way to keep the playoffs active and actually have a playoff tournament and still involve the bowl games. Now there has to be a magical way to do that, and it's not the complaint of, well, they have to go to school sometime because they're missing that school anyway.
Yeah.
So one, I'd like to see a regular tournament, just like the Division I AA's, you know, what do they call that?
FCS.
Yeah, FBS. That's a nice format. I mean, they're in a tournament. You get it at the end. You get the two teams at the end, and you have a national champion. And just tie that into the bowl games. But it was, yeah. You can't hang on to the past too long because they only had, I don't know how many bowls they had, but it was a couple of days. And but
30.
what's it? Yeah.
It's 30 bowls.
Yeah, but I just think that they could do that. I don't like the system. The top four teams, there's complaints about who the top four. I mean, the whole thing just doesn't sit. I mean, it could be different. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, I agree. And I think this is a conversation that we've had multiple times when we've done this type of show. To me, it's either you got to include more teams or not, because to me, college football right now is the only sport that has minimized the playoffs. And really the most important part of college football is the regular season. Because after that point, if you're saying there's only 4 teams that are eligible for the highest honor in college football, yeah, we've got bowl games and everything else, but unless you're a fan of that team or a fan of college football that you really want to just watch a game because you know it's toward the end, there's no meaning to it.
Yeah.
And I don't understand how a sport has minimized when it should be the most important part of the year. It really becomes minimized, except for a 14 fan base. So, I'm with you, 8, 12, whatever it is, I don't care what it is. Like you said, the FCS format is a perfect format. That tournament style, which is a mini March Madness version of what they do when it comes to the playoffs. So I'm with you. I think a lot of people are with you, except for maybe the Alabamas of the world that they know they're usually going to be in there every year anyway. They're like, we're here already, so I don't care what you guys do. We're going to be here. I don't know about you. We're at the party. We got a little hat. We got, we got some champagne. We got some poppers. We got some we're here. We're here. Whoever else shows up, the other 3 teams that decide to show up, maybe Clemson this year, Georgia that, whatever. But we know we're going to be here. So they're not worried about changing anything at that point. So anyway, Scott, we talked about, the influences and everything else that's been happening when it comes to the programs and whether it's name, image, likeness, and how universities are going forward to try to accommodate and catch up with the Joneses. But there are certain things that these players can do themselves to get notified and get noticed. Just explain some of those things for some of our student athletes out there that are looking for information like that.
Well, there's always a plus and a minus in every, or a yin and a yang, right? And so the positives of social media today, especially with the NCAA rules, a lot of coaches use Twitter to contact kids. So the most important thing that I always tell kids is, listen, make sure your name, your height, your weight, your grade, your core GPA is on there, your link to your huddle. In any sport, for girls and boys, it's important to be able to use those things and use a proper email. Don't use, saggy pants, Gmail, don't use that. Do the right things, and, like we always talk about, there's 3 resumes, your academic resume, your play resume, and then your social media / character resume. And you make sure your social media is clean, because coaches do use it as a way to take you out of the recruiting issues. So if you go negative, you're gonna have to deal with that. So it's important to use. It's especially now at the end of football season. We're heading into playoffs and kids are finishing up their years. And I know Dori's got tennis kids that use it and things like that. Just it's the where we're at. It's just the what, and it's a great tool to use.
Coach, as we wrap it up, what would you like to see from Washington to end their season? They've got, I believe, 3 games left. I think they have to win 2 of them to become bowl eligible. I don't know what bowl they'll be in. Chips and fries.
It'd be the Las Vegas Cheez-It Bowl.
Yeah, the tartar
Book
sauce
your
bowl.
flights, people.
I don't know, but still, what would you like to see as a fan of the program, fan of the school? What would you like to see them finish out the year and and from this coaching staff also?
Was it to me?
That's to you, Coach.
would
You
I
would be
like-
called. You are the
What would I
coach
like
right
to
now.
see? You know, again, you've dug deep to a question. Well, I don't have any particular strong feelings about where I would like to see them go. I mean, I think it would be, frankly, a mistake if they went to a bowl game. I mean, I just don't think that they should be bowl eligible. Now, I know that's they don't play. And maybe because my expectations of the University of Washington are bigger than what they should be, but they're not an exciting team right now. They're not fun to watch for me. And frankly, I'd rather watch their opponent on the other side of the state. I mean, they're and I'm not a fan of it. I've been tight with Washington for years, and clear back to the early days when the Texas people were there. Anyway, so I think that'd be a mistake. They're just hopefully next year they'll get things squared around and actually have an offensive front that's experienced and capable, because I think they're struggling right now. And I hope that answers your question, but no, it wouldn't bother me at all to see them stay home and recommit to what they're about, and make some changes and get on their way and be a real Husky team. Anyway,
I love it. A voice of the people, and it sounds right on par with a lot of fans that are just totally frustrated with this season. And there's been a lot of things that have been happening the last week, and we're going to find out some of those things in the next week with Coach Jimmy Lake. So, you know, we'll see, and we'll keep it going. You know, we've got our incredible Coach Blaine, Shorty Bennett, joined us. Check them out also at allnorthwestfootballcamp.com. We got Scott Laigo, student athletes advocate. He's here to help everyone, you know, parents, student athletes through the process of eligibility, recruiting, and financial aid. Dori Bennett, thank you so much for being on and being our coach here that keeps us in check, especially when it comes to math. And we always need an abacus. And I'm very happy that we never got into math questions today, because it really confuses us and then we get stuck. So thanks for being with us today. It was a lot of fun talking to you, Coach. I mean, we could do this all the time, and there's so many other things that we didn't even get into that we could still talk about. So, guys.
Well, thank you, especially, Will. It's always nice to come over here and hear all accolades. I guess they're out there. I don't know.
Of course, they're out there.
Seeing you. Again, it's good to see you. I looked twice. I thought, oh my goodness, that's Scott Laigo. Well, I haven't seen him for a while. Anyway,
always good to see you too, Coach. Always good to see you.
And your wife, of course. Yeah. Tell her hello and say hello to Joe. Yeah, I know you will. But good. All right, thank you.
All right, take care, Dori. Get his bagel. Don't mess around, man. We don't want to have to hear it. All right.
Trust me, that was number one on the list this morning. So it's happened. Check, done. And we moved on to the Bloody Marys. So, you know, it's a great Sunday. Thank you guys. It's a great show today. Appreciate it.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Good stuff. Bye.